what you think is big for your life isn't, and who you think you are isn't. There is more to you than you can imagine. Everything that you've experienced up until this point, and even what will come after, is for a very specific reason. You are so loved and adored by an infinite universe who only wants the best for you.
Hello. Welcome to Get Loved Up Podcast. I'm your host, Koya Webb, and I am here with DeAnna Carpenter.
Yes.
And this woman is magical.
Oh,
she
thank you.
sings like an angel. I think when we first met was at Agape.
It was.
And I'm just happy to have you on.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you for being such a bright light. And I feel like we just kind of, I don't know why, but I want to start with a little music,
Okay.
a little singing.
Okay.
So she has a whole album out. And what is your favorite song on the album?
Oh my goodness. Oh gosh. So, as you know, when you're creating, it's like you're attached to all of your creations for one reason or another. But if I had to pick one song on my album, it would be Deaf Ears. It would be Deaf Ears. I wrote the lyrics to that song came through after I had prayed. And I was at a low point in my life just trying to figure things out. I was actually driving Uber.
Wow.
I was driving Uber, and I was like, I just seems like everything that I'm trying to do is just not working out. What am I not getting? What am I not listening to? What am I just not getting? And then maybe 10 minutes later, I start hearing, I keep hoping and wishing and praying and thinking one day you'll hear me. And then it was like this refrain, and it was like, I hope you see me. I just hope that you'll love me in my silly dreams, but who am I kidding? I'm falling on deaf ears. And I was like, whoa. So, I pulled some paper out, wrote on the back, and I realized that was my higher self speaking to me. Like, I've been talking to you, but you've been thinking it had to look another way or present itself as another way. And I finally started listening when that song came through. So it's very near and dear to me. A lot of people think I'm talking about a relationship in that song. When we write, we kind of have to present it in a way that people can relate to. So it may feel like a relationship, but ultimately it's the relationship with myself.
Wow, that is so powerful.
Thank you.
You want to sing? You can sing whatever you like.
Okay. Well, let me see. Okay, so another song I can just sing Deaf Ears since I just brought it up. You said leave, I came closer, you said go. I held on longer, just couldn't believe what I was seeing. When you fell down, I helped you back up when I was low. You let me tumble, couldn't believe what I was hearing. And nothing has changed, but my love for you, it still remains. I keep hoping and wishing and praying and thinking one day you'll see me. I keep hoping and wishing and praying and thinking one day you'll feel me. I keep hoping and wishing and praying and thinking one day you'll love me. And these silly dreams, but who am I kidding? I keep falling on deaf ears.
Oh my goodness, thank you.
You're welcome.
That's so beautiful. Your voice gives me chills.
Oh,
You
thank
sing
you.
like an angel. And I'm just so inspired by your journey. And I kind of want the listeners to kind of hear, because singing was a passion of mine, as you knew, and something that I really had to heal from not feeling like I could let my voice come out. So can you share kind of your journey to being in your power, like
Absolutely.
with music?
As most people, I started out singing in the church. My aunt Lena would pick me up on Saturdays, and I would sing in the car with her, running errands, and we would basically she would tell me the songs that we were going to sing the next day, and we would just practice in her car. And while I was in the church, I would go to church with my grandmother because my mother was a single parent at the time. So it was that the music in me was really cultivated by my aunts, my uncles, and just people who would hear me sing, like, yeah, keep singing, baby, keep singing. And then as I got a little older, went to high school and having to make choices around, you know, if I'm going to college, what I'm going to study. And it was highly encouraged for me to get a career, go to school, get a degree, graduate, get a job, work, house, married kind of thing. And when I remember telling my family, especially particularly my parents, my mom and my stepfather, because my father passed when I was 8. So my mom was like, there's really no career in music. And she said, you know, it's a tough market to break into. You know, I'm from Detroit, so Motown had left the city years ago. So she was just like, there's no future in that. And I was like, okay. So I just kind of kept my singing to the side, and I went down this path that I was encouraged to go down, which was fulfilling because I met some really great people, but the singing never left. So when I went to college, you know, people discovered that I could sing. So it was like, oh, you have these different talent shows, and I was singing the talent shows, and, you know, I would place at the talent shows, and eventually I ended up pledging a sorority, and I became one of the songbirds. So whenever we had functions and events, I would be singing. And then after I graduated from college, I started working for a newspaper. And I was a copy editor, even though I initially interviewed as a reporter. So I'm following this kind of corporate life, and it was, you know, I had these moments in that first year where I was like, there's got to be more to life than just this. There's more than just getting up in the morning, going to an office, staring at a computer all day, and that fulfills some people, but it was, you know, it was a little bit different for me. And then I had friends from college who would call on me to come sing as they started getting married. So I would go and sing at the different weddings. But I would say 2 defining moments was when my grandmother passed, because she was one of the people who really encouraged me to sing. And when I saw a childhood friend, after some years, her father, and he said, so what are you doing? And I was like, oh, I'm working for a newspaper. And he was like, why? And I said, well, I went to school and got this degree. He said, you're supposed to be singing. And I didn't see him again after that. And he ended up passing some years later.
Wow.
But that kept, I don't want to say haunting me, but in a sense, haunting me. And with my grandmother transitioning, and I sung at her funeral. And I remember it was almost like something within me opened up, and there was this wave, like a really powerful wave of energy that just took over me and consumed me. And I was just like, okay, I need to honor this. Wasn't quite ready to honor it, but it got my attention. So those 2 things. And then I went to grad school because I was like, I know it's not journalism, so let me go see what else. So I had moved to Chicago, went to grad school at DePaul, and was studying nonprofit management. And while I was doing that, I was working with a nonprofit there. So I would always sing to the girls, same thing. You need to audition for American Idol. You need to do this. And I'm just like, those shows, no. And I ended up studying abroad in India for a month.
Oh, wow.
And my professors and classmates knew that I would sing. And so the villagers, they sang this beautiful song to us, and then they wanted someone from our group to sing, and they called on me. And so I did the first verse of Amazing Grace, I believe. And although they didn't understand what I was singing, they felt it. And that was another pivotal moment, because I was like, music transcends language. And it really speaks to the heart, you know? And I said to myself, okay, you have a friend who's about to release her album. She tours all over Chicago. When you get back, you need to tell her that you want to support her in singing background. And so as soon as I got back, I told her, I was like, hey, I've been sleeping on my voice. I've been hiding it, but I really am ready to sing, and I want to support you. And she's like, that's good to know. And then like maybe 10 months later, she released an album, and I was singing backup for her in Chicago. And it just kind of continue to build from there.
Wow, that's so beautiful.
Thank you.
That's so beautiful. And tell me a little bit about like your album. So you went out there, you started singing background. How did that transition to your album?
So still a lot of, it's amazing what we have to heal in order to give ourselves that permission to really step in and own our expression. And so there were things coming up as far as like even intimate relationships that all plays into this album. So I was in some relationships that weren't necessarily loving, but I learned a lot from them. And I also had to heal the relationship with my father, again, who had passed when I was 8. Didn't even realize that I was upset at him for leaving me. So there were abandonment issues I had to work through, all of which were playing out in my intimate relationships. And the whole time I was writing. I was writing the whole time. What I was feeling, a lot of lyrics was coming up during that time. Looking back, I realized I've been working on my album Tsunami probably almost for a decade and didn't even know it, because I was growing through the experiences that was inspiring the music that I would eventually write and share. So I was living in Chicago, and I ended up dating this guy, and I knew him from school, and he moved to California. And I had always felt that I was supposed to live in California, just wasn't sure why I was or how I was going to get out here. So I had finished grad school. He moved out here. I was like, you know what? I'm going to go to California. Moved to California. We broke up. And I was like,
But he got you here.
He got me here. And I was like, okay, he served his purpose. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. But I didn't get the lesson. I clung to that, like trying to prove myself to him, like, I am what you need, and I'm going to prove that I'm worthy of your attention and love, and that I got your back, and I'm not going anywhere. And you're talking about like, and at some point during that relationship, because it was like a 4.5-year relationship off and on, and I started having these insights of where it's like, why are you doing this? Like, why are you still here? Do you really love this person, or is it that this whole issue around abandonment, you know, you want to hold on because you don't want to do to someone else what was done to you, at least in my rationale, you know, because I realized my little 8-year-old self was still running the show. I didn't know that. So I finally let that go. And as soon as I did, so many opportunities started opening up, especially with music. And I finally said to myself, the next day isn't promised. Each day, each moment that I'm here means I'm another moment closer to transitioning. I don't have as much time as I did 10 years ago. So you're either going to do it or you're not. And I was like, okay, I'm going to do it. And then someone I just met through my ex, she was like, there's a producer who's looking for some people to work with, and I thought about you. She put me in touch with him, and we started working on music together. And he's actually the producer who worked on Ocean, which is on my album. And then I started thinking about, okay, who do you already know? And there's people I went to school with in high school who were producing. And I was like, hey, could you guys send me some tracks to write to? Or I would just start like singing into my recorder, sending them the MP3 so that they can build the music around it. And that was pretty much how my album came together. And I asked the album, like, what do we want to say? What are we wanting to convey here? And it's an album of coming into myself, you know, and it kind of runs the gamut of emotions, a very emotional album. So you can be feeling good and lifted, and then you're very introspective, like, wow, you know, but that was very much, that was the space that it was written in. You know, I was just in all of my emotions. And
it's so beautiful. Like, I could listen to it daily, and it's so rich. Like, you could tell that you put a lot of your heart and soul into it.
Thank you.
And so what would you say, like, you know, if someone's out there listening and they're like, wow, I wish I could do that, what would be your advice to them if they want to create their own album and be able to face those fears?
I would say my advice would be, you've already been creating that album. Your life is the album. If someone wants to write a book, your life is the book. I think, again, for me, I was getting tripped up with it having to be a certain way and look a certain way and happen by a certain time. And I realize now I I have more experiences to speak from versus maybe 10 or 15 years ago when, you know, I'm still green and figuring it all out, even though there's still so much more for me to learn.
Right.
But I would say trust that inner knowing and trust your gift. Trust your gift, and also trust that if you have that gift, there's already means and resources and people in place to support it.
Right.
But none of that gets activated until you trust the gift. It's like, I've been using this analogy lately of a light braid, where it comes with the designs already, but you have to put it on the, I guess, board, and then you start plugging in so that the design comes into view. But, you know, a lot of us are like those light braids. We have the potential, we have all the tools, but until you start activating the design, it's just there waiting on you. And so I say, you know, trust your gift, trust your gift. Know that your gift already comes fully supplied with everything you need to manifest it. So, you know, have faith in your gift, trust your life because it is your greatest inspiration and muse, and trust spirit. And, you know, I know some people may have a relationship with the ancestral realm, but that's a big thing for me, is connecting with your ancestors, because, you know, they know you can do it. They already see what's ahead better than we can. And so connect with their wisdom, because I feel like they were staying on me, which is why this album came out.
And what is your advice on like connecting with ancestors? Because I know not a lot of people know or do that work. Well, how do you do it for yourself, and how do you suggest other people?
It's simple, and yet it's funny because it's so simple. With my father, for example, I wrote him a letter because it just kept coming up, this whole issue of abandonment and just wanting to cling in relationships. And I was like, okay, there's a pattern. And I wrote him a letter, and I apologized for, you know, being upset with him all this time. And I told him that I wanted a relationship with him. I said, just because, I get it that your physical form had to, you know, I want to say expired, but I know your physical form had to rest, but I know energy always lives on. So I know you're still around, and I know you hear me. And I said, so I want a relationship with you. And my father shows up in ways that I can just feel, like I know when he's around, because someone to say something, and it feels very fatherly, even in the hugs that I receive from people, and even through my music. That's how Soul was written. Soul was written, I share with people that my father channeled through me that song. That was his response to my letter, was Soul. So as a practice and how to get into that, simply just say, it's like opening the door, because one thing I've learned is that our angels and ancestors are always around. We give them permission to be involved in our lives and to what extent and degree. And sometimes the greatest way to invite them in is just simply asking for help. And when I heard someone say that, I went in one of my journals and literally wrote big letters, help. Like, I don't know what this is. I don't know what to do with this. Help. And I was like, you know, I'm calling on the ancestors and angels who have my highest good at heart, and help. And stuff starts happening. Phone calls start, you know, you get a phone call from a person like, yeah, you know, I have this opportunity and you crossed my mind. Or you've just been on my spirit. So I'm reaching out, what's going on? And then you share with them what's going on, and it's like, oh, I'm gonna connect you with this person. Like, that's how it works. So I would say, just first of all, ask for help, be willing to invite them in. Invite them in, because they're there, you know, and also realizing that death is not the final, it's a door. And we still have access to, you know, our parents, our siblings, our friends. And as you invite them in and give them permission, start paying attention to your dreams. Start paying attention to the hunches that you get, or just the little whispers that you catch, because that's them communicating. So yeah, you can even start with a journal, just writing out your questions, or, you know, even help. Help, you know, big letters. And even if you're upset with an ancestor, because that's a big one for a lot of people. You can heal that so that it frees them up as well to be there for you, but in the spiritual. You know, so
that's so beautiful. That's so beautiful. I feel like a lot of people forget, you know, about the spirit realm. And so I kind of want to dive into that a little bit, like your spirituality, and because you could feel your energy when you walk into the room. And then I am definitely connected to you on a spiritual level, which some people is stronger than others. You know, some people it might be physical, some people might be energetic, but for me, like, I connect with people in different ways. And for you, there's a spiritual connection. So can you talk about your spiritual journey?
Sure.
And kind of share like how that leads you.
Yeah, so I grew up in the church. I don't think there was a moment where I was not in church, but background was it was Baptist. So like most people, my ancestors came from the South, you know, so they brought that Southern Baptist church where you revivals all week. And as a kid, I remember being in the pews like, can I please go home and just, you know? But, you know, the scriptures stayed with me.
Right.
So from a very early age, you know, scriptures and just different words were getting implanted into me. And like I said, I went to church primarily with my grandmother growing up because my mom worked so much. And then once my mom got married, it shifted. And so we started going to church together with my mom and her husband, my stepfather. And we started going to church as a family. And so we went to this church. It was like a non-denominational church, which was new for me because I was like, okay, I'm used to this very praise heavy, like, and I got to praise, like, you know, just a very certain delivery in the message that I was used to. And I go to this church and it was really different. And I remember kind of hanging back because it was different and because I was still upset that I was no longer going to church with my grandmother. But thank God I wasn't too closed off because that experience started opening me up to just how, to spirituality and not just religion. It wasn't, you know, like the Baptist church was, I feel, very good and still is. And it was a great introduction into like the Bible, yet there was something missing. And for me, what was missing was that aspect of not looking outside of yourself for the answers. So all I knew was externally focused.
Right.
And so I get to this church and they're starting to kind of, well, God is closer than you think. And I was like, really? You know, like, you know, saying all these things, and it sat with me, and I'm like, okay, I got to come back to that. But I'm in high school, not really knowing too much of what was going on, but still listening. And then went to college. I attended an AME church, which was still very structured, and it was kind of, it reminded me of my Baptist upbringing, so I was there. But honestly, the journey started when I moved to Wisconsin for my first newspaper job. And I was in Wausau, Wisconsin, which had a 0.08% Black population. So because I come from a all black city, Detroit, went to a historically Black college for school, it was a big culture shock for me. So I didn't connect with any of the churches there. So I started going to the Wisconsin River every Sunday, and that was my church. And I would be at the water, go sit in a tree, and I would just hear things that felt really good to my heart and soul. And then I kind of wanted to take on the Bible. Like, I was like, well, let me really read the Bible. And the Bible looked differently to me, like just the scriptures. I was like, wow, this is interesting. Like, I got a greater appreciation for the Bible. And then I left Wisconsin, but that being in nature never left me. It just continued to build with every place I moved to. And then I went to this church in the South. I can't think of it. It was FWPC, I think, but I can't think of the name right now. But the husband was a husband and wife team. And to me, they were so progressive in small town Columbus, Georgia. And he said one day, you are a God. He said this to people. It was during a Bible study. He's like, you are a God. You are a God. You come from God. And he broke down the scriptures in a way I hadn't heard. And up until that point, if you say you're God or try to claim it, it was blasphemy, you know? But he said it with such passion and authority. I was like, wait a minute. And then I started again looking at the scriptures differently. Like, oh, it does say that in the scriptures, but it's not often what's taught.
Right.
So that again opened me up even more. And I went to a summer camp of all places. It was called Camp Butterfly, and I think that's what really set me on this. It really pushed me further along. I had volunteered that year. It was based in Chicago. I was living in Georgia at the time, and I flew up there, and when we get into this beautiful brownstone house on the south side of Chicago, the first thing I see on the walls, 42 Laws of Mayat. And I'm like, who is Mayat? What is this? I started reading, and I'm thinking it's just a summer camp, but this is it was a very spiritual awakening camp. It was disguised as a camp, but a lot more was going on. Right. I left that camp being connected to my breath in a way that I hadn't been, being able to rub my hands and then hold them apart and feel the energy, things I didn't know prior to that moment. And smudging, that's when they went there.
Wow.
Then I heard about.
And how old were you at this time?
I was 25.
Okay.
And but our the youth, they were between the ages of 7 to 17. Yeah, that was the age group we served. And I learned about smudging. That's when I heard about honoring the ancestors, because it was an elder going through, like, clearing the space, and then she had certain offerings that she put on the altar. And I'm like, what are they doing? It was so amazing to me. Wow. And I left there just, okay, who is Mayat? Because I need to figure out who she is. What is, it was a lot of the elders there they didn't practice, but they were of the Yoruban tradition. So I was like, I gotta look into that. And then I just started, I don't know, I felt like that activated a door, because then I would stumble across an article here where an artist that I was following recommended her top 5 books, and one of them was Paramahansa Yogananda's Autobiography of a Yogi. Right. So I went and ordered that, and then someone was like, I think you're ready, you should read A Separate Reality. And I was just like, okay. And then someone else recommended The Celestine Prophecy. It was just, I had got to a point where I was very curious about things. And then I started to see oneness in all these they're all saying the same things, just different expressions of the same core message. Right. And I remember having a conversation with my mom, like, Ma, like, I'm so excited, passionate. And she said to me, she's like, oh, yeah, DeAnna, yeah. We got off the phone. 3 days later, she called me back and was like, yeah, I was thinking about our conversation the other day. You're not converting, are you? You're not converting to another religion. I was like, Ma. I was like, no, I'm expanding, my spiritual awareness. And so started reading those books and diving into those books. And things started opening up for me. The first time I read Sacred Woman, Queen Afua, was when I was 25. I know it's time for me to revisit it,
She just came out with a revised version.
Yeah, she did.
Yeah.
She did. And amazing. So she was very much pivotal in that as well. I've met her once. But it's just like things just started coming to me. I felt like, again, angels and ancestors were placing things in my path, because I love to read and I love to write. So I would start getting like downloads and just writing things and questioning things, and more answers would come. And then someone recommended me watch The Secret. And I was like, okay. And I watched it, was drawn to everyone who was on there. And then I see this guy with locks, and I'm like, like what he said really stood out to me. And then I'm in Chicago by this point. Since I moved, I've hopped around quite a bit, but I'm back in Chicago and decided to work with the camp as one of their staff, and while I'm in grad school, and was singing background, and there was this table set up, and because one was Dr. Michael's spiritual liberation book, another one was Paramahansa Yogananda. It was like a book of prayers. And I resonated more with Dr. Michael's book, but I bought Paramahansa's book because I was familiar with him. Right. And I still haven't finished Paramahansa's book, And so, long story short, I ended up moving to California, and I met 2 people within a span of a month who were like, oh, you should come to my spiritual center, Agape. And I'm like, oh, okay, what's Agape? They're like, oh, you will love it. It's this beautiful community. I'm like, okay, cool. And I finally decide to go, and I was blown away. I think may have been a little bit too much for me at points. I was like, wow, this is real? Like, this is a real thing. And it wasn't until maybe a couple of times visiting that it hit me that the guy on stage was the guy on The Secret. Like, I was like, oh, that's the dude from The Secret. And it's just been, and you would think like, but I resisted it. I wasn't ready. But I was still wanting to hold on to a smaller version of myself, still wanting to hold on to this relationship and wanting him to be more involved in my life than what he was. And like, let's go to Agape, come. And he didn't want to. And so I was like, well, I'm not going to go. Because, it's just so, but it was, thank God for growth. But yeah, it's just like, oh my goodness. And then finally, in 2016, I had by this point broken up. I had ended that relationship, and I woke up, I want to say it was a spring equinox, and I said, I was like, I need to be in community. And then I said, Agape. And at that point, Agape was the only place I visited once I moved to California. And I said, I'm going to Agape, and I've been there ever since. And so,
how many years has that been?
So Agape, I've been going to Agape consistently for 3 years, and but off and on since 2012.
Right.
And I've been here in California, which is hard to believe, since 2011, October 2011.
Wow,
so,
that's amazing.
Yeah.
I love how you said, I didn't convert, I expanded. That's very powerful. Can you share some more? Because I think a lot of people have had traumatic experiences when it comes to churches and separation of churches and things like that, and like, are you this or are you that? Can you share a little bit about that spiritual expansion that you
Absolutely.
have?
Okay, so it's really interesting because one of the things that I'm finding even now as I continue to grow and continue to read and just be open, it's just like it's all saying the same thing. So when you really realize that at the core and the foundation is all saying the same thing, it's really no way to convert from that. It's just building upon that because you recognize that it's all saying the same thing, which is really pointing to love of self. When you love yourself, there's no way you're going to harm the earth. There's no way you're going to harm or say anything to other people. It's just love. It all points us back to love.
And what do you feel like the oneness, like that connection?
Yes. Oneness. So, as you know, I just got back from Kemet, or Egypt.
Yes. I was going to get to that, but we can do it now. If that's coming up for you, yes, Kemet.
So even before, we'll say that. So when it comes back to the oneness, I feel like Kemet sealed it for me because in the months leading up to, in the years leading up to going to Agape, they stressed oneness. It's oneness, and love. Oneness, love. And I was getting it, but it was still very much a thought. Like, oh, okay, I get it mentally to an extent, but it wasn't all aligning for me in my walk, rather. And then, again, one of the reasons I love Agape is that Reverend Michael brings some powerful teachers to the community. And for me, one of those teachers is Brother Ishmael Tete. And so I heard him speak, went to one of his retreats, and then I ended up signing up for his daily 6 a.m. calls, and they're called the 3 Mystical Truths. And he pretty much builds upon, and even it's like everything that Reverend Michael talks about it's there, but it's taught from the perspective of nature. So whereas for a lot of people, nature and just the human experience are separate, Brother Ishmael shows how it's really all one. And then he's really big on, you got to find the evidence in nature of your abundant nature. And then I started looking around, like, even the fact that you and I are here, and we started out as a single cell, and then under the right conditions became these beautiful, that's abundance. Or looking at the single grain of corn, when planted, becomes a whole field. And realizing that the very same substance and spirit that allows that to happen is what's within me. It's like, oh, so I'm no different from the sun. The moon, we are the moon. The mountains are there, they remind us of our own expansiveness, our ability to reach high, And then I started to develop a greater appreciation for earth, for fire, for the air. and water, because I realized they all have a sacred agreement that makes life possible, even human life. And so through these teachings, honestly, I have to thank Agape and the Ethereum mission, Brother Ishmael, and just with me practicing it, and like it was like, I'm gonna find the evidence so that I can know this for myself, as opposed to someone telling it to me and I'm living through them, but being able to practice it just by paying attention to nature.
Right. And so how does that help you get through challenge? Because you can like, okay, nature's good, but what happens when there's hurricanes and in your life there's drama and trauma and ridicule and rejection? Like, how do you deal with that, and how do you process?
So I'll share, so 2017, when I wrote Deaf Ears, that was the year of undoing for DeAnna. Like, that was the year of my undoing, as I call it. Like, everything, because even though I was growing more and delving into spirituality more and allowing that part of myself to evolve, there were still things that I just wasn't quite getting. And so family situations, when you make choices, you put yourself last because you want to provide for or help out a sibling, or, you know, money, you know, is a big issue to work through for me with family, but even relationships. And I felt it. And I remember, like, okay, I'm on these calls and he's given us these tools, let me kind of put them to use. So I definitely acknowledged the fact that I was hurt, I was upset, I was frustrated. I gave myself time to feel it all, to be upset, to curse if I needed to, you know, just kick and scream. And then once I felt like I acknowledged and honored it, I would say, okay, what is true? What is true about this? But I had to allow myself to feel what it was, because that's the part I think sometimes with being spiritual, we forget you're still having this experience, you know, so what is it here to teach you? How is it here to evolve you? So I would say, I would get the kicking and screaming out. I would turn off my phone. I would do what I had to do to get that rage out, because rage is actually a healthy thing when channeled properly. Because it puts you into a space of action, and you realize that it came up because something needed to be healed.
That's powerful.
That's
so powerful.
Something needed to be healed. And so a lot still needed to be healed, most of which was suppression. I was always suppressing what I felt, my voice. I was putting people before my own needs, even though I knew to say no, but I didn't, because I wanted to please people, and I always want to be considered as kind and nice. And I suffered in 2017 for that, because I made a lot of choices that put me behind. And I remember just wanting to leave this realm, asking, I was like, you know what, God, if you just want to call me back home, this would be a good time, because it was getting really painful.
And where did you think that pain was coming from?
It was coming from not just even, it was just, I was just talking to a friend last weekend. It was a part of my curriculum. It was a part of my soul curriculum. You know, like, I had to experience that. Because that was what my soul wanted to evolve in this lifetime. It's being able to speak up for myself. To really honor my voice and honor my heart. That was my soul's agreement this lifetime. So everything that supports that happening is going to happen, even if it hurts me in this lifetime, in the moment. Because once I get it and I'm moving through it, it's like, oh, this is why this is happening. So even how I look at all my relationships, I was talking to another good girlfriend of mine. I said, girl, I don't even look at my exes the same. It's like I'm literally taking from those relationships the lessons and how they helped me grow. Because that's what they were there for. That's what we all are there for in each other's lives. So when I meet people now, I look at them and I say to myself, like, what was our agreement? What was our agreement?
How will I grow?
How will I grow, and how will I help you grow? And I think that's been a very powerful, that's how I've been getting through. I had to surrender to it. I had to allow it. And again, the answers are all within our spiritual text. You know, everything is a an experience to grow and evolve our souls, which they're already evolved,
right.
you know. However, you know, the earth is a big school that we agree to come here as to, you know, advance things forward. And so.
And is that what you mean by spiritual curriculum? Because I know a lot of people haven't heard of that before.
So, yeah, like, and if again, people's beliefs are different, but I really do believe that, you know, before we came here, we had a council of, you know, a team in the spiritual realm who's like, okay, you know, this is what you want to experience in this lifetime. So this is going to happen. You're going to meet these people. You kind of know that. And sometimes when you meet people, it's like you feel like, I know you, even though this is your first time meeting in this life, but there's something in them that connects with you. It's because, yeah, you guys knew each other, you know, before you got here. And so the curriculum is like, if you look at Earth as a school, and every interaction, every trial, and even the successes, it's like a big school. You know, what happens in school, you know, you learn this information, you take tests, you know, so when things happen in life, good, bad, or indifferent, they're all tests. Even the goodness that happens is a test. Like, how will you move forward from that? How will you share that goodness with others? You know, how will you continue to be open to even greater and not settling for that, and knowing that there's still more to receive. You know, so yeah, if you just look at your life as like, I am a student and I am here learning, and at the same time I'm the teacher, because I'm going to provide learning opportunities for other people too.
That's powerful. I feel like that I am a student and I am a teacher. I think some people that feel like they're, you know, just a student, and some people feel like, oh, I'm just a teacher, I don't have more to learn. But I definitely resonate with you on that. Like, I am forever a student and forever a teacher at the same time. And how can you help people who, like, I don't see myself, like, I can't help anybody, I haven't done the work that they've done. Like, what would you say to them?
I literally just, someone said something similar on Facebook. And I said to her, I said, never underestimate the value of a smile, a hug, or literally seeing someone on the street and giving them eye contact. Saying hello.
So everyone can do it. Everyone can be a teacher.
Everyone is, it's nothing's off limits in how you express and show up as a teacher in people's lives. I remember one of my exes, I have a thing for when I'm walking and I'm like, if I see you, I'm gonna make eye contact with you and I'm saying hello. And he'd be like, why are you saying hello to these people? They not looking at you. They don't want to say hi to you. Why are you saying hi to these people? And I had a moment to make it. I had a choice to make in that moment. I could have listened to him, which would have been going against myself. But I was like, just because they don't speak, I'm going to still speak, because I don't know. I probably, you know, just acknowledging that that person is there, you don't know what that does for them. So in every moment, I mean, just being who you are, and like I said, a smile, a hug, just, oh, you look so beautiful in that dress today, or, oh my God, that haircut is sharp on you. Whatever that is, those are, don't discount that, don't discredit that.
I think that's powerful, because you're not letting someone else's reality or anyone else's assumption of their reality affect your reality.
Exactly.
You're like, this is my reality. I'm a happy person. I'm going to connect with you. Whether you connect with me back, it's like, it's unconditional love.
It's unconditional.
Like, that's exactly what you're doing. The conditional is like, are you going to respond back? Oh, that person didn't even speak back. And now they are affecting your reality when your goal was to affect theirs.
Exactly.
But when you unconditionally love, you're able to stay in this vibration rather than being thrown off, waiting for a response or having an expectation. That is so very powerful. That is such a beautiful way to live and be. And what happens when someone does affect your reality? Like, let's say the government and the president and you know, all of these traumatic things that are happening in the world and countries. Like, how do you breathe through that?
That's a really great question.
I know it's hard. Oh, we got the hard questions coming out.
It's like, woo, how? Because that's a real, like, okay, I know that this is all an illusion, but this feels real. You know, this is affecting millions of people And it may not be affecting me, quote unquote, directly, but because it's affecting people, it's affecting me. Because again, the oneness piece, right? And we feel it as sensitives, light workers, however you identify yourself, you feel it, you know. But again, what I keep coming back to is that we all chose to come here at this time. We all chose to play the roles that we're playing. Trump is playing his role very well. And it is calling us to do the same. So this is a time where light workers need to rise. It is a time where the empaths need to feel. We need to feel it all. We need to expose it all so that we can really help humanity, Earth, transition and elevate to the level that it's going. And so, but again, honoring how you feel. I'm very upset. This is pissing me off. Why is he doing this? Why did this person do this? Do they not get it? Ugh, I just want to strangle him. Honor it, honor it all. Honor it. Because again, if you don't, you're just making it worse because it's going to seep up in another way. So honor it and then just take a step back too. It's like one of my favorite books is called Leadership on the Line. And they gave this analogy of being able to be on the dance floor and dance, but also knowing when to remove yourself from the dance and just stand on the balcony to see what's going on. And we have to know how to flow between the two. Be in the dance, but also, okay, let me go step on the balcony so I can see what's going on. So I would say dance, which is like feeling everything and have the conversations, but then come on the balcony, get a better perspective so that when you return to the dance, you can, through your movement, through what you say, you can kind of augment what's going on the dance floor. So I feel like we're in a time of great shifting and transformation. If you didn't feel it, we're feeling it now, and it's coming up in ways because it's time. It's time. It's time for it to come up, and we all agreed to come here at this time. So in some way or another, we have a responsibility, but what that looks like depends on the individual, how you contribute. And what I've learned is that it doesn't have to be this big thing. Focus on the quality that you want to see more of. So for me, before I go into a place, I focus on love and joy and enthusiasm. Because I know I bring that. So I'm like, okay, I just want to bring that wherever I go. And what happens is that when I meet people, they look at me and it's like, oh, thank you so much. I just feel the love, or whatever that looks like. They'll feel it, even though they may not. I didn't say it out loud like, oh, I set this intention for love, But if everybody set an intention, you can change your family dynamic. You can shift your work environment just by saying, I'm going to hold the space of love. I'm going to hold the space of joy. And I'm not even going to do anything other than just be that. Just show up and be it. And it really, I've seen it where it transforms over time. And so I just think that we all have to, again, never underestimate the power of a small act, because sometimes those small acts are what really shifts the dynamic. So, when President Trump, I'm going to go ahead and, when he got in office.
When he got in office.
When he was laying in there. It was like, I was like, oh, this is going to be interesting, because this is going to be interesting 4 years. And I said, well, there are no accidents. This is like, I think William Shakespeare said it best, all the world's a stage and we're all just merely actors. Each one has their entrance and exit. So, if you look at it from that perspective, then it's like, this is one of the greatest dramedies playing out right now. And it's like, okay, well, what's my part? What's my role? How am I contributing to all of this? And so, but yeah, again, honor it, even though I know that he's very good at, he's in office for a reason, because in my lifetime, I've never seen this much activism. Our parents have, in the 60s and things like that, but this is a great time to really stand up and make not just change, but things that like transform and transmute energy, And so Those are my thoughts, but still honor how you feel, because it's real. It's still there.
And so how do you, based on this and based on a lot of, some people feel that it's manipulation happening and things like that, and you being a light worker and standing for love and peace, how do you, in your daily walk, in your daily teachings, because I know you lead a lot of people, but how do you really breathe into that space of holding space when so many people are constantly being manipulated and even charged or even coming out with all of this hate and abuse and things like that?
Like you said, I breathe, and I allow myself to feel, and then I say, okay, but what is true? That question has saved me many.
And what is true?
What is true?
What is true?
What is
for
true?
You?
For me, what is true? What I know for sure is that there is a presence that runs through and is in everything. Whether you call that God, the Christ energy, or whatever that looks like, there's this presence, and it's within all of us. In all things, what is true, all things always work together for the highest good.
Right.
And it's not just for some people, it's for all people. So we can trust and believe that President Trump, there's things that he's having to grow through and evolve through in his lifetime as well, just as much as I am. And Brother Ishmael said this once. He was like, and this really resonated with me, he said, you may not have been raped, but you may have had a lustful thought towards someone. Just because you didn't act on it doesn't mean that the energy behind it wasn't there because you thought about it.
Right.
How many times have I wanted to go off on someone or punish someone because I didn't like them when I was younger, or they said something to me that hurt me? When he said that, I was like, wow, I'm not really too different. When we really acknowledge those shadows, it's like, oh man, which gives me more compassion.
Right.
For President Trump and for people who are making these choices, the higher powers that be, in the states that are making these choices that feels like, gosh, do you not feel that? Do you not have a soul? Sometimes it makes you wonder. But it's like, okay, I have to remember that they have their life lesson and that they're just on a different path at the moment, but it all leads back to source. All of it.
Right.
All of it.
That's huge.
All of it.
That's huge.
So that is what gets me through the madness, is that all things always work out for the good and it all returns to source.
Speaking of source, Kemet.
Yes. Oh, Lord.
Let's talk about, is that the source? Woo! Is that the beginning? What did you experience? I want to know.
I have been preparing to go to Kemet, I would say, all my life, and just didn't know it. There was this painting that my mom brought for me when I was in high school, and it was, now I realize it was of a Nubian princess, and she was just sitting there thinking, and it was over my bed, and I love that photo. And then when I went to Camp Butterfly and saw the 42 Laws of Mayat, there were always these little, like, we're just gonna put this right here so she'll see it and catch her attention. Right. I wanted to go to Kemet in 2009, so 10 years ago actually. I really wanted to go, and I wanted to go with this, I can't think of his name right now, your Sir Hotep, but he was leading, yoga. Yeah, your seer. So he was doing yoga in Kemet, and I really wanted to go. But you're talking about I was very much scarcity mindset. So when I saw the price, I was like, oh, I can't afford it. I just automatically was like, I can't afford it. I can't afford to go. And I was in a relationship, and I wanted us to go together. It was this whole thing, you know. And then started going to Agape, and in 2016, that was when Agape went, and I was like, gosh, I had the money for it. And I was like, I should go, but I couldn't get the time off. And instead of, again, saying like, no, this is important for me, I'm gonna go, I didn't. But it wasn't meant for me to go in 2016, but this was the year. All I can say, as soon as we touched down in Cairo and I walked into the airport, I just started crying. Like, I mean, bawling, crying.
Wow.
Felt my whole body just buzzing. And in the days leading up to it, I started hearing songs, catching visions of different hieroglyphs, and just like a part of me was waking up and remembering.
Right.
And my dreams just became super vivid leading up to being there. And I get there and I'm just like, whoa, you know. And everywhere I went, you know, people was like, oh, you know, Nubian queen. I'm just like, and then when we start going into the temples and you see these beautiful reliefs and hieroglyphs and you're staring at yourself, like, things activate when you go to Kemet.
Right.
If nothing else, you remember who you are, and even if you can't mentally grab hold of it, everything else in you does. Your heart cracks open wider.
Right.
You know, you feel deeper. I do feel Kemet is the beginning. It's just you know, I'm still processing that experience.
Right.
And, but there's a certain level of confidence that comes when you go over there.
Right.
It's almost like I wrote in my journal, I said I needed to come home to remember who I am. I needed to come back here because I do feel in my heart that I spent time there in previous lives.
Right.
And the pyramid at Giza is the Great Pyramid is very powerful. It's like a conductor of energy, and I just felt like I was being charged the whole time I was there.
Wow.
I've described it as one big mirror. Like, I was like, Kemet is like a mirror. It's like it's like reminding you of who you are at every turn.
Wow.
At every turn. At every turn. There's no way that you can go over there and not come back walking a little bit taller and deeply feeling good about yourself and all that you're here to share. There's just a confidence that just consumes you and takes over. And I highly recommend everyone go at least once.
I love that. And what was your most magical moment, would you say?
I was asked to sing in the Great Pyramid at Giza, which was very powerful. But my most magical moment was probably visiting Komombo Temple, which was in Aswan. And it was a hospital. And one side was for ophthalmology, and the other side was like, I think it was for birth. Like, women would come there and give birth. And I went into this area, and Akili, who was Reverend Michael's brother, was just explaining the reliefs. And one of the things I love about Akili and Rev is that they allowed us to have our experience when we were over there. So they would share, but not so much to where it would influence our own experience in the different temples.
Right.
So we went into this one relief, this one room, and there was this beautiful relief of an initiate in the middle. And behind him was, I think it was Horus. No, because right in front of the initiate and right behind him was a goddess. Sekhmet was in front of him, feeding him the Ankh, which represents eternal life. And I believe it was either Hathor or Isis behind him. And then it was like Horus and another deity behind him. And I just could not leave that room. And so as everyone else was going through the rest of the temple, I went to Reverend Cheryl and I said, I'm going to go back to this room and I'm going to sit there, you know, for a little bit of time. And she said, okay. I was like, I just wanted people to know where I was at. So I went back in there and I'm just staring at this relief, just watching, just looking at the images. And I literally felt my heart like opening Like I felt it opening. And what was so powerful about that one particular relief is that I really got clear on how truly supported I am.
Right.
Every step of the way. Every step of the way. Just seeing that, you know, something about seeing that initiate, because I feel like in so many ways we all are initiates in this school of life, you know, and seeing how he was supported by Sekhmet was right in front of him, and she's the remover of obstacles in ancient Kemet. Right. She clears the way, and for her to be right there in front of him, you know, and I was like, but that's how it is. Right. You know?
And explain initiates and what you mean by all of us being that.
I feel that, so initiates, the way I look at it, is just a person, any person who is desiring to, is going back to the conversation earlier about each of us having a soul curriculum. So I feel like when we came to this earth, we already kind of came here in initiate mode, you know, because we're going to go through these different experiences in life that evolves us. It's like the hero's journey, as they call it. Like everything we go through is really serving us in our evolution and our expansion. And so an initiate is just another way of, to me, like back in ancient Kemet, there were certain people who had to go through certain requirements, if you will, and based on them, again, everything's a school, so them learning the lessons, they'd be able to, and once they kind of tested and proved, they would go to the next level. Right. So I feel like when I speak of initiates and it's saying that we all are initiates, it's like we're here to evolve some aspect of ourselves. And the fact that we're here lets us know that there is something within us that wants to be more, that wants to be bigger. And so the initiate's journey is what this life is about. It's everything up until this point and everything that will happen. Right. And, you know, everything is a cycle. You know, who I am now, foundationally at my core, is still the same, but I look different, you know, from even a month ago. So our experiences, you know, serve to help spiral us up, which is a whole nother level. So you never, I don't necessarily know if you ever stop being an initiate. I feel like it's, you know, this constant journey of unfoldment. But I guess I'm not even sure if I explained that clearly, but I would say that an initiate is anybody who is on the journey of life, who is evolving in some way, teaching in one way and still being a student, you know. So you don't have to, your life is the mystery school. You don't have to go to the temples in these indigenous lands, even though that I think it's powerful to visit them because they do remind you that you can do it. But the way our lives are set up, how we handle things, is what helps us to evolve.
I love that.
So, yeah.
That's powerful. And so how are you, like, kind of what's next for you? Now you've been to Kemet, you're using your voice, you have this album out. What's next for you?
What's next is being able to, because I've been getting a lot of downloads, like, you know, start a writing program for youth. Be able to hold this retreat here or do this. And I just was like, you know, kind of resisting it. And then I go to Kemet. It's like, okay, DeAnna, you got to get on this. So I would say, honestly, right now, there's a couple books that are birthing. Right now, I'm kind of like, okay, sketching it out. The whole time I was over there, I wrote the entire time, and I shared I shared what was placed on my heart to share on Facebook and a little bit on Instagram. And through the sharing, I realized that there's more for me to do there, because I had a lot of people really following, like, oh my God, I feel like I'm there. Right. A lot of people, a couple people messaged me, like, I'm remembering certain past lifetimes, and I haven't been there in this lifetime, but I'm remembering. And I'm just like, okay. So again, realizing that one of my gifts is that I write. I'm a scribe. Right. So being able to write and present the teachings in a way that really connects to the heart and helps all of us along our journey.
Absolutely.
You know, so that's one. When I was going to Kemet, while I was there and even coming back, so much music has been coming through. And I'm just like, okay, so I'm already like getting back in the studio, and I was hearing what the music sounds like. So looking for the musicians, and beautifully enough, meeting them without even trying. It's like,
that's magical.
You know, and so an album which is going to be inspired by the time there. And just creating spaces, whatever that looks like, wherever I'm being called to go. And a lot of it will be collaborations, because I do feel you get further when you come together.
Right.
But just creating the spaces for people to heal. That's the overall thing. How that expresses itself and plays out, I feel like my silent partner, as Reverend Cheryl calls it, and my team will let me know. My charge is just to continue to do and be who I am, and be open to that download to come through. And
your silent partner being Spirit?
Spirit,
okay.
yeah. Because once I get into trying to figure out the how, I get frustrated. And then I don't even end up moving at all.
Right.
And it's just like, no, just focus on the what. You know what to do. You know to keep sharing.
Right.
So yeah, definitely more music is coming, and some type of book is coming through right now as well.
Amazing. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Is there any last thing that you want to leave the listeners with? And the viewers, since we're going to be on YouTube.
Yeah, that's right. What you think is big for your life isn't. And who you think you are isn't. There is more to you than you can imagine. Everything that you've experienced up until this point, and even what will come after, is for a very specific reason. And you are so loved and adored by an infinite universe who only wants the best for you. Only wants the best for you. You are supported every step of the way. All you have to do is say help.
That's so beautiful. That reminded me, we just had a full moon ceremony, and you shared a practice that I think was very magical. Can you share that practice?
Yes. So, you know, the heart gets a lot of love, and I love the heart. Like, you see, I'm all in green, so it's like, you know, I love
activating
the heart.
That heart
yes,
chakra.
You know, I love the heart, and if there's an example, again, going back to finding examples in nature, looking at your own body, the heart is such a pure example of loyalty. You know, she's been beaten nonstop. So I was in my bed one day, and I was looking at my body, just looking, and I was like, wow. And I looked at my toes, and I was like, man, there's parts of my body that is just holding it down for me that I'm not even aware of. I don't have to tell my heart to pump. I don't have to tell my lungs to breathe in, breathe out. Like, it does, everything is well thought out. And so I literally, this one day, I just started at my feet, and my toes really, and just was like, thank you. Thank you so much for making it possible for me to stand. Thank you, ankles. You know, thank you, toes. Thank you, all my joints in my feet, all the pressure points in my feet. And then I started rising up. So, you know, my shins and my calf muscles, and I was like, my knees, and like literally just thanking the parts that I knew by name. And then I would say, getting chills thinking about it. I'm like, you know, even the parts that I don't know by name, but I know you're there working on behalf of me so that I can be here to fulfill what I'm here to fulfill. Thank you.
That is profound gratitude for your physical body. That is the most beautiful thing.
Yeah, because it hears you.
Right.
And then you feel like, I think I was on a high for the rest of that week.
Wow.
And it's because I took time. It's like, oh my gosh, she sees us. She sees me, you know? And it's like when you really look at what your body does for you without, and again, I'm still discovering what all the body does.
Absolutely.
Because a lot of people say you have to control the body. Why control it? Work with it. Talk with it. We don't want to be in a controlling relationship with other people. Why would we do that to our bodies?
Right.
Just talk with it. Express your appreciation. I love you. Like, I'm at a point where I just look at myself sometimes like, girl, I love you. And I can look at myself and not look away.
Right.
You know? And then I look at my body, it's just like, oh, thank you. And I have long fingers. And when I was little, I used to ball my hands up a lot because they were just really long fingers and I was kind of embarrassed. But now I'm just like, you give me the opportunity to write healing music.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And I can heal with these hands. You need it to be long, you know?
Right.
You had a lot to do, you know? And so it's just, I'm getting to that point where I realize that everything was provided for, even this body that I get to journey in for the time that I'm here. So
it's such a gift.
It's a gift.
Such a gift.
It's a gift.
And you're such a gift.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you so much. So tell the people where they can find you.
Absolutely. So you can find me on, as far as my music, the album is titled Tsunami, Tsunami. DeAnna Carpenter. It's on iTunes, Spotify, Tidal, all of the online streaming platforms. My website is www.DELLESINGS.com. I'm on Instagram as She Who Builds with my shirt.
I love the shirt.
Thank you. She Who Builds, and I'm also on Facebook, DeAnna Carpenter. So I'll be expanding into Twitter. I had an account and I just didn't get Twitter, but I have someone who's helping me now, working with me, who's like, yeah, we're gonna get you back on Twitter. I'm like, okay, you know, get in the Twitter streets.
So beautiful.
Oh,
and thank you so much for coming on. We're just gonna throw some love at the people.
Yes.
Until next time, love yourself, love others, and love the world.
Yes. Bye.